The file on my desk right now is for a woman named Corinne Alder, 31 years old, last known contact at 6:47 p.m. on the evening of the 9th. She called in from somewhere on the Ridgeback Traverse, a moderately difficult route on the northeast side of the Sabran Wilderness, because her ankle had rolled on a section of loose talus and she wanted to know whether she should continue down to the trailhead on her own or wait for a pickup. The dispatcher on duty was a young man named Petrov, 6 months out of training, competent, careful. He asked her a series of standard questions. He got her coordinates. He put her through to the responding station, which acknowledged her call, advised her that the weather was stable, gave her a bearing to the nearest reliable water source, and told her to make her own way down to the trailhead if she felt able. The exchange took 3 minutes and 11 seconds. It was ordinary in every respect. She did not arrive at the trailhead. She has not been located. I'm supposed to be writing the communications reconstruction report for the file. It is, or should be, a routine document. A chronological account of every transmission that mentions her call sign, cross-referenced against the search grid deployment, cross-referenced again against the weather archive, ending with a professional judgment about whether the communications performed as intended. I have written more than 1,100 of these reports over the course of my career. I am considered good at them. My reports are cited in training materials. There is a whole approach to communications reconstruction that people in my division call, without irony, the Holden method, because I published a paper on it 15 years ago that everyone still uses. I'm not going to finish this report. I'm going to write down what I have found instead tonight, in the office while my supervisor is on the coast at a conference and the overnight desk is being covered by a rotating pair of contractors who do not know me well enough to notice that I have not gone home. I want to say at the start that I do not know what is happening. I want to be clear about that, because I have spent 30 years being paid to know what is happening, and I am not going to pretend now, in the middle of the only investigation I have ever been afraid of, that my professional certainty has survived intact. It has not. I am writing this down because I am frightened, and because writing things down is what I have always done when I am frightened, and because I do not at the moment trust the systems I would ordinarily write these things down inside. Here is what I have found. The station that responded to Corinne Alder's call was identified in Petrov's log as Fire Tower 8. The response was logged at 6:44 p.m. It included a valid station identifier, a valid rotating encryption handshake, and a voice signature that matched. I checked a voice signature on file in our communications personnel database, though the personnel record itself has been marked archival for reasons I will come to. Fire Tower 8 was decommissioned in 2007. I know this because I signed one of the closure certifications. I remember signing it because I remember the tower. I visited it once in 1998 on a familiarization tour early in my career, and I remember the man who staffed it, a soft-spoken forestry technician named Orel Marek, who made me coffee on a small propane stove and showed me the wall of hand-drawn weather charts he kept as a hobby. Orel retired in 2004. The tower was staffed intermittently for 3 more years and then formally closed. The road to it was allowed to grade out. The radio equipment was removed and inventoried against a decommissioning schedule I could pull from the archive if I wanted to. The building, so far as I know, is still standing on the shoulder of a mountain called Rel. But it has no power, no antenna, no operator, and no reason to exist within our active communications network. Petrov did not know this. He was 6 months out of training. To him, Fire Tower 8 was simply the station identifier that appeared on his response, and the voice that came through on it sounded, by his description, calm, older, professional, like the ones from up north. He wrote in his handover note that the exchange had been textbook. He said this to me later, in person, when I asked him about it 2 days ago. He is a good dispatcher. He did nothing wrong. I found the anomaly during my routine cross-reference against the search grid. When a hiker goes missing after a radio contact, the first thing we do is triangulate the transmission. Corinne Alder's outgoing signal placed her within a plausible envelope on the Ridgeback Traverse. The responding station's signal placed it, according to our repeater network's automatic geolocation, on the shoulder of Rel Mountain, at coordinates that matched Fire Tower 8's known site to within 20 meters. This is what should have made me stop. It did not make me stop. It made me assume, for about 6 hours, that someone had set up an unauthorized transmitter at the old tower site, a rogue operator, a survivalist, a well-meaning ham radio hobbyist with a stolen encryption key. This is a plausible enough scenario that I have handled 2 cases of it in my career, both times ending with a polite letter from our office and the confiscation of some very expensive equipment. I ran the historical search. I want to be specific about what I searched for and why, because the sequence of what I found matters. I asked our incident database to return every missing hiker case from the Sabrin region in the last 20 years, whose final logged communication had been with Fire Tower 8. I expected to find 1 or 2. The Alder case, and perhaps 1 older case from before the closure that I might vaguely remember. I found 43. 29 of them were dated after the decommissioning in 2007. I sat with that number for a long time. I want to describe what I did with it, because the memory of my own reasoning that afternoon has become important to me. I did not immediately conclude that anything strange was happening. I concluded first that the incident database was contaminated, that some legacy import routine had been stamping post-closure cases with the wrong station identifier, and that the true responder had been a neighboring tower whose signal had been misattributed. This was a professional hypothesis. I have seen worse database contamination in my career. I sent a query to our repeater network group, asking them to verify the actual physical origin of the response signals in the 29 post-closure cases by pulling the raw signal strength data from the network of repeaters that would have relayed each transmission. The response came back the next morning. 27 of the 29 post-closure responses had originated, according to signal strength triangulation across at least 3 independent repeaters, from the site of Fire Tower 8. The remaining 2 had insufficient repeater coverage to triangulate, but were consistent with the same origin. Radio signals do not lie about where they come from, or at least, not the ones we know how to build. A signal that reaches 3 repeaters at known distances arrives at each with a known attenuation, and the geometry of the attenuation gives you the source. You can spoof a call sign, you can spoof a voice. You cannot spoof a signal into arriving at 3 separate mountaintop receivers at the exact power ratios that only a specific origin produces. Someone or something was transmitting from the site of Fire Tower 8. I want to describe the voice because I have now heard it, and hearing it is different from reading about it. Our communications archive retains audio for every emergency call for a period of 7 years. 22 of the 27 post-closure responses were still within that retention window. I listened to all of them. The voice is a man's voice. It is a good voice for the job. It sounds patient and unhurried, with a slight regional accent that people who have spent a long time in the Northern Forestry Service tend to develop a softening of the consonants, a habit of pausing before technical terms. It says things like, "Ma'am, I'd suggest you refill at the Silver Fork crossing before you push on. The water above there is not reliable this time of year. And sir, if you're at the cairn I think you're at, you want to bear left down the slope, not straight ahead. The straight ahead route becomes a scree field about 200 meters down." It sounds like a man who knows the country. It sounds like exactly the kind of voice you would want to hear if you were injured and confused and trying to decide whether to keep walking. It sounds, though I did not want to admit this at first, like Oral Merrick, not identical. Oral had a specific catch in his laugh that I do not hear in the recordings, and Oral was in his late 50s when I met him, and would be well into his 80s now, if he is alive at all, which I have not yet confirmed. But the cadence is his cadence. The pauses fall in the same places. The way it says the word reliable, with a small emphasis on the second syllable, is the way Oral said it in 1998, standing next to his propane stove, telling me which of the ridge weather patterns you could count on and which ones you could not. I have not yet allowed myself to look up whether Oral Merrick is alive. I will, before I finish this account. But I have not yet. I am aware that this is cowardice. I want to describe what the voice tells them. I have listened, at this point, to all 22 archived post-closure responses, and I have transcribed the operational content of each one. What the voice does, in every case, is give the hiker exactly the information they ask for, delivered with exactly the professional competence they need to trust it. The information is accurate. I have checked. The water sources it mentions do exist. The bearings it gives are correct against the topographical maps. The weather updates it provides match to within the ordinary error of a good field forecaster, the weather that the archive shows for that afternoon on that mountain. In every case, the voice tells the hiker to continue, not aggressively, not suspiciously. It tells them to continue in the way any competent responder would tell them to continue, when their situation is judged to be within their capabilities. A rolled ankle in a person with 2 liters of water and 3 hours of daylight is not a helicopter call. It is a walkout. The voice, in every case, correctly identifies that the situation is a walkout, and gives the hiker a route and wishes them well and closes the channel. In every case, the hiker does not arrive. I want to be careful here, because this is where the pattern becomes something I cannot quite hold in my head at one time. The voice is not lying. The routes it gives are real routes. The bearings are real bearings. If I, tomorrow, took the coordinates it gave Corinne Alder on Tuesday evening and walked from her last known position along the bearing it provided, I would arrive in approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes at the Ridgeback Trailhead parking lot, which is precisely what the voice told her she would do. She did not. Nobody has. The routes work in every particular except one, and I cannot identify what the exception is. I have overlaid the 27 post-closure route recommendations onto the search grid maps of where each hiker's last known signal placed them and where their body or belongings were eventually found, in the 11 cases where anything was found at all. There is no consistent deviation. Some hikers apparently walked the route as instructed and vanished from a point along it. Some appear not to have walked the route at all. Some were found, the 11, in locations that make no sense against the given bearing. In one case, more than 9 miles from the recommended track, on the wrong side of a river. None of them would have had reason to cross. The routes are correct. The hikers do not survive them. I have been in this job long enough to know what a real pattern of communications-related death looks like. It looks like bad information. It looks like a repeater giving the wrong bearing because of a magnetic anomaly, or a dispatcher misreading a coordinate, or a translation error in a multilingual exchange. Every one of those patterns leaves a signature. The survivors report the wrong bearing, or the bodies are found consistently off route in a specific direction, or the dispatch recording, played back, reveals the mistake. There is no signature here. The information is good. The hikers still do not come home. I called the Repeater Network group this afternoon and asked them what the current status of the Fire Tower 8 signal is. The technician who took my call was a woman named Inez, who I have worked with for about 6 years, competent, unflappable, willing to spend 20 minutes on the phone with me because she likes me and because I once helped her navigate a divorce. I told her I needed to know whether the tower was currently transmitting. She said she'd check. She called me back 20 minutes later. She said, "It's transmitting." I said, "Now, at this moment." She said, "It's been on the standing frequency for the last 6 hours. It's not doing anything. It's just holding the channel open. That's normal for a manned tower with no active traffic." I said, "The tower isn't manned. It's been decommissioned for 18 years. There was a long pause. Then Inez said, in a voice I had not heard her use before, a careful voice, the voice of someone choosing what to say next, "Halden, I've been running the Repeater Network for 9 years. Tower 8 has been on the standing frequency every night I've been in this job. Sometimes it takes traffic, sometimes it doesn't. It's on the channel list, it's on the maintenance schedule, it's on the equipment inventory. It reports its own power draw every month. I don't know what to tell you. It's a tower. It transmits." I said, "Inez, I signed the closure paperwork in 2007. I was there. She said, I know. I said, what do you mean, you know? She said, I mean I looked it up when I got your call, because I thought maybe I'd been wrong. There's a closure certification in the file. It's got your signature. It's dated November 2007. There's also a deferred decommission note attached to the same file, dated December 2007, initialed by someone whose initials I don't recognize, that says the tower has been retained as a continuity contact under the standing frequency protocol. The initials aren't from anyone in our directory, but the note is there. It's been there since 2007. That's why the tower is on the maintenance schedule. That's why it's on the channel list. That's why nobody has ever questioned it in the 9 years I've been here. I asked her to send me a copy of the deferred decommission note. She said, I can't. It's flagged for internal review only. It's not exportable. I said, is anybody actually reviewing it? She was quiet for a while. Then she said, Halden, I don't think anybody has looked at it in 18 years except you and me today. I want to describe the physical site because after I got off the phone with Inez, I did something I should not have done, which was to drive out toward Rel Mountain on my own time to look at the tower. I did not make it to the tower. The access road has been ungraded since 2007 and is, as I mentioned, a road only in the historical sense. I got my truck about 4.5 miles up from the highway before the road became a series of washed-out switchbacks that I was not going to drive at 4 in the afternoon without a spotter. I parked, and I got out, and I stood on the shoulder of the ridge and I looked up through my binoculars at the silhouette of the tower on the mountain above me. The tower is there. I want to be clear about this. It is a standard L4 style forestry lookout on a steel frame, weathered, missing some of the glass in the west-facing window, with a stub where the main antenna used to be. There is no antenna. I confirmed this at maximum magnification. Whatever is transmitting from that site is not transmitting through the tower's original antenna, because the original antenna is not there. There is no vehicle at the base. There is no smoke from any stove. There is no light in any window. The catwalk railing has broken loose in one section and is hanging at an angle I remember distinctly from a maintenance photograph in the closure file, the same angle, in the same section that it was hanging at in 2007. The tower has not been visited by any human being since it was closed. I would stake my career on this, and in fact, I am in a limited sense doing so. And yet at the exact moment I was standing on the shoulder of the ridge, looking up at the empty cab through my binoculars, the tower was holding the standing frequency open for inbound hikers. I confirmed this from my truck radio, which is a piece of personal equipment I have owned for 20 years, and which does not touch any of our institutional systems. I tuned to the standing frequency. I heard the carrier. I heard the small periodic identifier burst that a manned station puts out to confirm it is monitoring. I heard once faintly what might have been a chair creak, and might have been an artifact of the receiver, and I am not going to speculate about which. I drove back down. I got to the office at 7 this evening. It is now 11:42 p.m. Here is what I have not done, and here is what I have not yet decided whether to do. I have not looked up whether Oral Marek is alive. This is the first thing, and it is the smallest thing, and it is the one I have been avoiding for 2 days. I could do it in 30 seconds. I have the retiree database open in another window right now. I have not clicked over to it. I think I'm afraid that Oral died shortly after his retirement, and that whatever is transmitting on the standing frequency is using a voice that has been dead for 20 years. I am also afraid that Oral is alive and living in a small house somewhere in the Northern District, and has no idea that the voice on Fire Tower 8's channel sounds exactly like his. I'm not sure which of these possibilities is worse. I will look before the night is out, but I have not looked yet. I have not filed a report. I have not called the on-call supervisor. I have not, in the terminology of my job, escalated. I know how to escalate. I've taught the procedure. In every previous case of my career, when I have found something I could not immediately explain, I have escalated within the hour, and I have found that the process of preparing the escalation clarifies my own thinking, and generally reveals, in the preparation, the ordinary explanation I had missed. I am not escalating this because I do not know who I would be escalating it to. The deferred decommission note in the file has initials that Inez does not recognize. The tower is on channel lists and maintenance schedules that someone maintains, and that no living person, so far as I have been able to determine, has actively updated in 18 years. If I write a memorandum tomorrow morning describing what I have found, I do not know whose desk that memorandum will land on, and I do not know what that person will do with it, and I do not know whether I will be told to stop, or told to continue, or told nothing at all. I have not decided what to do about Corinne Alder. This is the part that matters. This is the part I want to be honest about, because everything else is preamble. Corinne Alder called Fire Tower 8 at 6:44 p.m. on Tuesday. She has been missing since some point Tuesday evening. Our search teams have been in the field since Wednesday morning. They have been searching along the bearing that the voice provided to her because the bearing is the last known operational information we have, and search protocols require us to begin from the last known information, and no one on the search team has any reason to disregard that information. The teams have found nothing. The weather is holding. Tomorrow is Saturday. She has been missing for approximately 79 hours. I could tell the incident commander tomorrow morning that the bearing she was given is not to be trusted. I could give my reasons. I could say that I have listened to 22 archived responses from the same station, that in every case the information was operationally correct, and that in every case the hiker did not survive the route. I could say that I do not know why this is, and I could say that I am asking the search teams to search off bearing on the grounds of a pattern I cannot explain. If I do this, one of two things will happen. Either the search teams will search off bearing and find her, or they will not. If they find her, I will be a hero of a peculiar and unrepeatable kind, and I will spend the rest of my career being asked to justify a decision I cannot defend in any language my profession recognizes. If they do not find her, and the odds, based on 27 prior cases, are that they will not find her regardless of where they look. I will have wasted 72 hours of search capacity on a hunch, and I will have my certification reviewed, and I will very likely not be a senior wilderness search communications coordinator by the end of the month. I could also not tell them. I could let the search continue on its bearing. I could finish this account and file the reconstruction report tomorrow in its ordinary form, and accept the outcome that the record already suggests. Corinne Alder will join the list. There will be 44 cases instead of 43. The tower will hold its standing frequency open tomorrow night and every night after, and the next hiker to call in with a rolled ankle on a fine autumn evening will get the same voice on the line, and the same accurate bearing, and the same walk into whatever it is that the walk goes into. I do not know what the right choice is. I want to say that clearly in this document, because I have spent my whole career being the person who knew what the right choice was, and I do not, tonight, know. What I keep coming back to is the voice, not what it does, what it is. Somebody at some point put that voice on that channel and configured the network to receive it, and marked the tower deferred decommission, and initialed the note and walked away, and let the arrangement stand. I do not think any more that this was the work of any office I could find by looking. I think it was one person, or a small number of people, working in a room that has since been repurposed, and I think they did it because at some point, decades ago, they decided that a wilderness in which hikers called in and got no answer was worse than a wilderness in which hikers called in and got a voice that sounded like Oral Merrick's, and I think they may not have understood, at the time, what they were choosing between. I do not think whatever is on that channel is malicious. I want to say this, too. The voice, in every recording I have listened to, sounds like a man who is trying, within whatever constraints govern him, to give good and useful advice to a person he cannot see. He asks after their water. He tells them about the weather. He suggests routes that would work, that in the ordinary world would work, that on any other mountain in any other year would deliver a person with a rolled ankle safely to a parking lot before dusk. Whatever is not wrong with the voice. It is wrong with the space between the voice and the arrival. It is wrong with something that the voice, in giving its accurate and patient advice, does not know it is directing people into. Or perhaps it does know. I cannot tell. I'm not sure it matters. It is now 12:14 a.m. I have just in the last 3 minutes looked up Oral Merrick in the retiree database. He is listed as deceased. Date of death, November 19th, 2007. That is 8 days after I signed the closure certification. That is 19 days before the deferred decommission note was initialed and attached to the file. The cause of death field is blank. I'm going to close this document now. I'm going to walk down the hall to the overnight desk, and I am going to ask the contractor on duty to patch me through to the incident commander on the Alder search. I'm going to tell him that I have concerns about the reliability of the last contact bearing, and that I am recommending, on my authority as Senior Communications Coordinator, that tomorrow's grid be redrawn to search a wider radius without reference to the recommended route. I am going to give my reasons in language he can defend. I am going to say that our historical review has identified a signal integrity issue with the responding station, and that the bearing should be treated as compromised. This is true in a limited and technical sense that will not survive any serious cross-examination, but that will hold up long enough to get her another day of search on ground the voice did not send her toward. I do not think we will find her. I want to be honest about that. 27 cases suggest we will not find her, and I have no reason to believe this one will be different. I am doing it anyway, because it is the thing I can still do, and because the alternative, sitting at my desk and completing the reconstruction report in its ordinary form and going home, is the alternative I would spend the rest of my life apologizing for, in a private and interior way, to a woman I never met. The standing frequency is still open. I can hear it through the receiver on the wall behind me. The small periodic identifier burst, repeating every 90 seconds. Patient, unhurried, professional. Somewhere on a mountain that has no antenna, someone who has been dead for 18 years is holding a channel open for anyone who might call. I'm going to hope, without any real expectation, that tomorrow night, when the next hiker on the next mountain reaches for their radio, they get static. I'm going to file this account with my sister, who is a lawyer, in a sealed envelope, along with instructions that it be released only if I am no longer able to release it myself. I do not think I'm in any physical danger. I want to say this, too, because I do not want the melodrama of pretending otherwise. Whatever is on that channel does not, so far as I can tell, reach beyond the channel. It answers when called. It does not call out. But I am about to make a decision that will be, if it becomes known, the end of my professional standing, and I would like there to be a record of why I made it, in a form that cannot be quietly rewritten by whoever it is that initialed the deferred decommission note in December of 2007. The receiver is still holding the frequency. It is 12:19 a.m. I'm going to stand up now and walk down the hall.